E-Content Development Course, Business Research Methods Unit to Business Research Design Topic Experimental Research Design, Part 2. Learning Objectives. To understand the need for hypothesis. To know the basis of hypothesis testing. To understand the meaning of hypothesis. To explain the features and functions of hypothesis. Introduction. Principles of experimental design. Basic principles of experimental design. Professor R. A. Fisher describes 3 basic principles of experimental design as times principle of replication times principle of randomization times principle of local control. Principle of replication. This principle holds that experimentation should be repeated more than one time to achieve precision and accuracy in experiments. Suppose effect of 2 flavors of ice cream on sales of ice cream has to be examined, and then various retail outlets are being selected to test the effect of flavors on sales. When experiment is conducted in various outlets, then precision and accuracy can be increased. If it is tested only in one retail outlet, then the effect may be due to chance or other external factors. Principle of randomization. It provides good measure to control experimental error. Randomization helps to segregate the effect of extraneous factor as a chance factor. Thereby provides better measurement of dependent variable. Test units or respondents are assigned to groups randomly. Assigning treatments to groups also done on random basis. Principle of local control. It aims at controlling the effect of extraneous variable and separating it from treatment effect. For this purpose, dependent variable is examined under various levels of independent variable. Experimental and control groups are formed wherein one group controls the extraneous factor. Thus, source of variability is removed from experiment and causal effect is established. Conducting an experiment. In order to make experimentation a successful function, a series of steps should be followed by researcher. These series of functions or activities guide researcher in times controlling extraneous factors, times measuring experimental effect, and times establishing internal and external validity of experimentation. The process or function of experimentation has series of activities like times selection of variables, times specification of treatments, times control of experimental environment, times selection of experimental design, times selection and assignment of subject, times revision and pilot test, times data analysis. 1. Selection of variables. We know that the objectives of research are based on research problem and hypotheses are derived from objectives of the study. From stated hypothesis, researcher should identify the variables. Variables should be conceptualized and operationalized. Researcher should know how to measure the variables. Thus, what variables should be selected and how it is measured are the main concern and is a starting point of experiment. 2. Specification of treatments. Researcher should specify various levels of independent variable which are considered as treatments. For example, sales are a dependent variable which changes due to change in price, which is an independent variable. Independent variable price may be tested at various levels, say low, medium, and high price. Researcher should properly assign levels of independent variable. 3. Control of experimental environment. While conducting an experiment, researcher may encounter extraneous variables that influence the experimentation. Therefore, researcher should control it to establish true relationship among variables. In addition to price, packaging, size of store, etc. are considered to be the external factors. These factors should be controlled to measure the effect of price on sales. 4. Selection of experimental design. Experimental designs provide unique method to measure experimental effect. Various designs are available to conduct an experiment. The design should be selected on the basis of research requirement. Time and budget cannot be ignored while choosing a specific design for experiment. It will make research more replicable and match with real setting. Thereby external and internal validity is achieved. The experiment designs are discussed in detail in next part. 5. Selection and assignment of subject. While selecting test units or respondents, researcher should adopt random selection of subjects. Random selection distributes the differences among test units randomly. He should confirm sample is truly representing the large population considered for the study. Once the subjects are selected for groups, groups should be assigned treatment using random technique. 6. Revision and pilot test. This is the golden opportunity for an investigator to identify the flaws in instrument or method adopted for experiment. Pilot testing can be done to check whether it is accurate, is establishing experiment without any confounding factors. This revision and testing helps researcher to confirm about the accuracy of design selected, steps taken to achieve internal and external validity. 7. Data analysis. Once the experiment is conducted, then recorded data are analyzed using suitable technique of analysis. Analysis. Data in experiments will be more systematically obtained for various levels, groups and pre-test, post-test base. Though data analysis is not easy, but it is in some orderly pattern in experiments. Symbols used in experimentation. Campbell and Stanley have made given simple way to understand experimental designs using symbols. Some symbols are used to understand diagrammatic presentations of various experimental designs which are presented in the table. SL.No. Symbol description 1. X. Exposure of a group to an experimental treatment. 2. O. Observation or measurement of the dependent variable. For more than one observation or measurement, numbers are assigned to identify OX, O1, O2, O3, on 3. R. Random selection of test units or individuals to form experimental group. 4. O1X, O2, O3 indicates sequential order of occurrence of events from left to right, time order. 5. Symbols in one row indicates they belong to one specific group. 6. Symbols arranged vertically indicate they occur simultaneously. Experimental research designs. Experimental research designs are blueprint to conduct the experiments according to a predetermined frame. These designs vary in exercising control over research variables. The extent to which contamination of relationship is controlled will vary from design to design. The major classification of experimental research designs can be listed as times pre-experimental designs. Times true experimental design times statistical designs. The diagram clearly depicts various experimental designs. Experimental designs. Part 3. Pre-experimental designs. Pre-experimental designs are sometimes referred to as informal designs. They are not powerful to control the effect of extraneous variable, and thereby internal and external validity cannot be achieved completely. Some important pre-experimental designs are times after only, one short case study, times one group pre-test post-test design, before after without control group, times static group comparison 1.1 after only, one shot design. This design is used to know the effect of independent variable on dependent variable without any comparison group or control. It can be diagrammed like this. Dependent variable is measured after an experimental treatment. Dependent variable is measured only once. For example, a manufacturer of a particular television brand notices that he has got large number of television in stock. In order to sell it, he decides to sell it in an offer price. Dependent variable, that is increase in television sales, is measured after introducing an offer price, which is an experimental treatment. Here there is no measure to identify how offer price has an effect over sales of television. Here internal validity cannot be achieved accurately. XO. Pre-experimental designs, true experimental design, statistical designs. After only one group pre-test post-test. Static group comparison. Pre-test post-test control groups. Post-test only control groups. Solomon 4 group design. Completely randomized design. Randomized block design. Latin square design. Factorial design. 1.1 group pre-test post-test design, before after without control group. In this design there will be only one group. Dependent variable of the group is measured before and after the experiment treatment. This can be diagrammatically represented as: if researcher wants to examine the productivity of workers after a training program, then he measures employee productivity of a selected group before providing training, which is O1. Then training is provided, and after training again employee productivity is measured for the same group. Experimentation effect is measured as O2-O1. This indicates change in dependent variable employee productivity by independent variable employee training. But in this design, since the inferences are based on one group and subjects are not assigned randomly to group, various threats of internal validity like maturation, selection bias, test unit mortality, etc. may creep. 1.3 Static group comparison. There will be two groups, namely experimental and control groups. For first group, that is experimental group, dependent variable is measured after treatment. In control groups, dependent variable is measured without any treatment. Symbolically, it can be presented as: if researcher wants to examine the productivity of workers after a training program, he considers two groups, then he measures employee productivity of a selected one group, which is known as experiment group, after providing training, which is O1. Thus, dependent variable is measured after treatment, that is training. Then dependent variable in another group, which is called control group, is measured without any training, which is O2. Experimental effect is measured as O1-O2. The drawback of this design is that variables are not measured before the treatment, which can cause threat to internal validity. Part 4. True Experimental Design. True experimental designs, these are more formal and test units and treatments are randomly assigned to groups. The important true experimental designs are times pre-test post-test control groups, before-after with control group. Times post-test only control groups, after only with control group, times Solomon 4 group design 2.1 pre-test post-test control groups, before-after with control group. In this design, test units are assigned randomly for both experimental and test groups at same time. Treatment X is given only for experimental group and dependent variable is measured before O1. O1 x O2. Experimental group X O1. Control group O2. And after treatment O2. For control group, dependent variable is measured before O3 and after but without any treatment O4. It can be represented with diagram. If effect in experimental group is termed A is equal to O1, O2 is equal to treatment plus extraneous variable. If effect in control group is termed B is equal to O3, O4 is equal to extraneous variable. Thus, experimental effect is equal to A to B is equal to treatment effect neutralizing extraneous variable. To point to post-test only control groups, after only with control group. In this design, pre-test is not conducted. Here researcher selects two groups randomly as experimental group and control group. The dependent variable is measured only after treatment X for experimental group, which is O1. Simultaneously, dependent variable is measured for control group without treatment and denoted as O2. Symbolically, O1 is the treatment and extraneous variable. O2 is extraneous variable. Thus, experimental effect is equal to O2 O1 2.3. Solomon 4 group design. In this design, 4 groups are considered to investigate the relationship between variables. This design is helpful to remove testing effect and effect of extraneous variables. But it is costly and time-consuming compared to other designs of this category. Symbolically, it can be given as experimental group RO1 x O2 control group RO3 O4. Experimental group RXO1 control group RO2. Experimental group 1 RO1 x O2 control group 1 RO3 O4. Experimental group 2 RXO5 control group 2 RO6. Part 5. Statistical designs. Statistical designs are more complex, formal, rigid and scientific. They facilitate statistical control and analysis. Statistical designs can examine the effect of independent variable at different levels. Extraneous variables can be controlled effectively. The major statistical designs are times completely randomized design, times randomized block design, times Latin square design, times factorial design. 3.1 Completely randomized design (CRD). In this design, researcher assumes that extraneous variables has same effect on all groups. Treatment is assigned to test units or groups randomly. It is based on replication, that is, treatment is repeated several times to achieve accuracy. It is the most simple and inexpensive design. For instance, if researcher wants to examine the influence of offer price on sales, let us consider sales of a particular brand of chocolate under various price levels in different stores. Then test units are stores, price under different offer category like low, middle, high etc. are considered as different treatment levels on which dependent variable sales varies. Sale of chocolate in different stores for various price levels is recorded. Usually dependent variables are measured under ratio or interval scale and independent variables will be on nominal scale. Parametric tool ANOVA is used to analyze such data. It ignores the effect of extraneous variable on dependent variable. The design is based on the assumption that all extraneous variable influences dependent variable sales in same way. All test units stores are similar. But actually it is not true. There are various extraneous variables which influence sales. Size of the store, location of the store etc. influences sales. 3.2 Randomized Block Design RBD. In this design, the limitation of completely randomized design is met by considering the heterogeneity of test units. It allows examining the influence of extraneous variable and thereby provides accuracy in measuring experiment effect. Let us reconsider the example given in completely randomized design. Generally, the size and location of stores may influence the sales of chocolate. Suppose researcher identifies location of stores as a major factor relating to sales. He classifies stores into 3 blocks based on location of the store as urban, semi-urban and remote. Now influence of extraneous variable and difference in test units are considered. Here it is location of store is an extraneous variable and blocks of location are different tests units. Then treatments are assigned to all blocks of stores randomly so that all blocks receive all treatments, price levels, at least once. Before introducing treatment, blocking is done. Effect of independent variable on sales for each block is then recorded and analyzed. 3.3 Latin Square Design. Whenever researcher is interested to control the effect of 2 extraneous variables on dependent variable, then Latin square design is applied. While employing this design, researcher should see that categories of extraneous variable and treatment levels should be equal. Let us continue with previous example of effect of price levels on sales. Suppose researcher wants to control 2 extraneous variable, one location of stores and other packaging of chocolate. Location of stores has 3 categories, namely urban, semi-urban and remote. Packaging under 3 different packs like paper packs, A. Cardboard boxes, B. Metal containers, C. Latin square design is represented with diagram. Store location packaging ABC urban X1 X2 X3 semi-urban X2 X3 X1 remote X3 X1 X2. In the diagram, it is clear that the treatment is applied randomly in such a way that all blocks receive treatment only once. Though this design is complex and expensive, it is systematic and achieves validity. 3.4 Factorial Design. It is applied in situations where researcher wishes to measure the effect of 2 or more independent variables at different levels. It examines the effect of independent variable individually, which is termed and main effect, and interaction effect of 2 or more independent variables. Interaction effect means if 2 independent variables combined together can influence on dependent variable. Continuing with our example, price and location of store influencing sales. Price of the product can be 3 categories: low, P1, medium, P2, and high, P3. Location of the store can be two categories, namely urban U1 and semi-urban U2. This can be represented in tabular form price levels as rows and location of stores in columns. The 3 asterisk to table has 6 cells representing 6 different combinations. Respondents are assigned randomly to each cell. Respondents in each cell have a particular treatment. For example, cell P1U1 are tested for lower price levels in urban stores. Thus, factorial design helps to identify interaction effect and main effect. Conclusion. Before ending up, let us recap the aspects which were discussed till now. It is about how experiments are conducted and procedure followed in conducting an experiment. We learnt about various experimental designs that are applied in business research. By adopting suitable design and keeping in mind the principles of experimentation, researcher can achieve internal and external validity. It provides both accuracy and precision in findings. By adopting experimental design, generalization made will reflect the true setting and can have large research implications. Its precision, accuracy, and validity make it more reliable among other research designs. Hope you understood the aspects of experimental design discussed in this session. We shall meet in next session. Thank you.